game maker, tutorial makers on the internet, and I know that he's inspired a number of people, including Heartbeast. I had an interview with Heartbeast, and he said specifically that your tutorials that inspired him. So this is the guy. This is the guy. It's absolutely fantastic to have him down. I've really bigged you up. It's going to be a good talk. Cool. Shaun Spalding, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, I'm Shaun. If any of you know me, you probably know me from my video tutorials. I do a lot of video tutorials on how to use GameMaker. I want to apologise first off to Kwang and Jupiter, who when they asked me to do this talk, tried to get me to give them a title and a description for the talk. I had no idea what I was going to do. I make videos about making video games, that's mostly what I do. So I thought that that's what this talk would be about, and it's absolutely not. Like, it has nothing to do with it whatsoever. And when Jupiter asked for a description, I literally gave her like 8 question marks, to which I think she just went, fine, whatever, and she actually posted that as the description, which was kind of appropriate. So that's not really the title of my talk. My title is actually how to be an indie games developer or YouTuber or Twitch streamer or artist or creative person who strives for greatness while accepting that despite giving it everything and aiming for success, this work probably won't ever replace your day job, and having that just be okay because safety nets are important, and after all you're doing this for reasons that are bigger than financial success, although that'd be nice too, I guess. So that's the really concise title of this talk. How do I... There we go! So there's a bit of a like 6-minute unskippable cutscene at the start of this talk where I'm going to sound really self-indulgent and just talk about who I am and what my career is. It's kind of important because I have a really weird career, and it's important that you understand the weird lens through which I'm going to be telling you weird stuff. So I apologise for the next 2 slides. Feel like they take forever, but I promise I'll try and get through it as quick as I can. So I was a student at Teesside University, and I made a game called Perspective in GameMaker 8.1 in 2011, something like that. And that game was for my final year project at university, and that game single-handedly got me my first job as a AAA game at Ubisoft Reflections as a junior game designer. The reason that happened is because Teesside University did this cool thing called Expo Tees. It's like a final year project showcase that I didn't know about when I went there, but I learned about it, and it had a bunch of awards associated with it. And they were industry-sponsored awards, and one of those awards was sponsored by Ubisoft, and it had a prize for the best game and level design-related project of an internship at Ubisoft Reflections. And because I just happened to make a game in GameMaker 8.1, GameMaker wasn't really super well known back then. In fact, Unity wasn't even that big back then. And most game design students weren't being taught tools and being taught how to build things and actually create games for themselves. So I was one of the only people who'd ever actually made a game as their final year project. And most game design students had like game bibles or like GDDs and documents and that kind of thing. So I had an actual game that I could show off, and so I managed to just sort of stumble into winning this award without really much competition, because the moment I showed a game to the people who were interviewing for the award, they were blown away by the fact that someone had done that. So I was really lucky. I was just in the right place at the right time, and I just made a thing, and that just happened to be the exact thing I needed to do to just stumble into a job in AAA games, which is ridiculous luck. And then while I was working at Ubisoft, I started a YouTube tutorial series, which is the thing I guess most people know me for if you know me at all. And that was going okay at the time. I didn't expect it to blow up in the way that it did, but it did blow up. And again, it was a matter of being in the right place at the right time, because no one else was making GameMaker tutorials at the time, or a few people were, but a lot of them were like, they put like a notepad thing on the screen and they would like write out the instructions for the tutorial in Notepad, and it was awful. So I started doing videos, and there was apparently a huge market for that, and it flew up and did really well. Again, right place at the right time, insanely lucky. And now that YouTube series is making me a ton of money, which is really cool. It's not actually making me a ton of money, but it's making me a significant chunk of my income, which is a crazy thing. I made another game while I was working at Ubisoft Reflections. I told you this slide goes on for ages. Called Another Perspective, which was like a sequel or remake of Perspective, because I just, like every designer, I made a game and then hated it immediately afterwards and see everything that's wrong with it. So I made a game that was meant to be the first game, but way better. And somehow this game won me a ton of money, again, in the right place at the right time. Yo-Yo Games announced a competition for the Windows 8 store called Win Big, because haha, Windows and we'll win, right? And the competition was to put a game on the Windows 8 store. And as they were trying to encourage people to put games on the Windows 8 store using a new module to export games. And it just so happened, I was almost finished with my next commercial project, and I had this all ready. All I had to do was finish it off for this competition, and no one else was ready for that. Everyone else just had this competition sprung on them, so they treated it like a game jam, and they were like building a game from scratch for this competition. I just happened to have a thing that was like super polished and ready to release commercially, and I entered it into this competition, and I won $15,000 for it, which is insane. Can you imagine the odds that like this competition just comes around, and I happen to just have this thing? Because not only did it win first prize, which was $10,000, but it also won best new game, because it was a new game and hadn't been released before, therefore another $5,000. So then suddenly I had this crazy amount of money I was sitting on, and my YouTube channel was blowing up and doing really well. So then I was able to go indie all of a sudden. I had the opportunity to just leave Ubisoft, and this was actually kind of dumb in a way, because I did this without any real plan at all. Like, it was mixed up, like I didn't plan anything of what I was about to do. I was just like, I'm gonna go indie and do the things, it's gonna be great. But it wasn't that dumb, because I thought about the money I had, and I'd worked out that I could spend 3 years doing nothing and earning no money at all, and my YouTube, assuming my YouTube kept making money, which it did, thank God, and with the savings I had, and if I earned no money at all from what I did, I would be fine, and I would just have to then move back in with my parents or get a new job or whatever. But I had 3 years to make something work, and I had the safety net, and so that's why I did it. I did that for a while, and I became this weird triage of things where I'm an indie developer or YouTuber. I don't really like that name, but I prefer internet video person, which is my official title. And I'll gloss over this because it's not too important to the talk, but I was community manager at Yo-Yo Games for a couple of years, and that was really fun, and I learned a lot from that as well. And then I went back to doing what I'm doing now, again, with a safety net. And it's going pretty well for me, and I'm really, really lucky to be able to do that. I promise I'm almost done with a self-indulgent explanation of my career, but we're getting there. So these are all the things I do to make money at the moment. Like, I have 93,000 subscribers and 10 million views on YouTube, which sounds like big numbers, there's a lot of zeros in there, but that doesn't really actually make me a whole lot of money. I know I said it earlier, but it doesn't. It about pays off my rent and a bit more than that. That's all that does. Which is not insignificant by any stretch of the means. And I live in the northeast of England, though, which is like the one bastion of the UK that actually kind of has affordable rent still. So, but that pays my rent. And then on top of that, I make more money from my 110, I think 116 or so amazing supporters on Patreon who just fund me because they like the content I do and they are happy to fund me to keep doing stuff. But there's no way I'd have got that conversion and got that size audience if it wasn't for this lucky crazy thing happening first. But all of this stuff put together, that still actually earns me a bit less than minimum wage. Like even this, I sell my game on Steam, another perspective, and that still, it brings me up to just, I think, I don't know what minimum wage is at the moment, but I'm pretty sure I'm like just to the baseline of underneath. So I fill in the rest by doing freelance work, which is a bit rare, but it's well paid enough that I generally close the gap and I'm able to be okay. And there's other things, I have huge savings from other stupid piles of money I've stumbled into, because look, which allows me to be safe and to do these things without too much risk for myself. There's some other things I'm doing as well, and I'm working on a weird niche game in my spare time that's... the important thing here is that I'm doing it in my spare time. I'm not actually being a full-time indie developer. That's not my full-time gig. That's my part-time gig, but I still think of myself as an indie game developer. Because I don't think you're defined by what you do to earn a living. I think you're defined by the things you do that you care about. So I call myself an indie game developer because that's what I do and that's what I care about, even though it might not be what occupies most of my time. So yeah, my career, as you've seen, is really, really weird, and so is this talk. It makes it really hard to write a talk to apply to anyone but me and my exact experiences through life. I was asked to try something technical because like the other things were not like technical talks, but I'm a terrible programmer and I had nothing interesting technical to say. So sure, you don't get any of that. And everything I'm going to talk about is really lens specific. It's specific to me. Talks are nonsense, they're bullshit, and I'm not the boss of any of you, so feel free to ignore anything I say because it's all nonsense. So I have three main things to cover, and this is the first one of them. Yeah, we're done with the intro now, isn't it? I'm not a full-time indie developer, as I said, and that's okay. Trying to do that right now is insanely hard, and you could write a whole talk on this. And Rami here actually did write a whole talk on this. It's really good. It's like titled "Indies Don't Stand a Chance" or something. It's a really good talk. Sounds depressing, but it's actually a really good reality grounding talk. And this tweet kind of summed up everything I wanted to say about this a couple of days ago. Want to know how game dev risk feels? Bet 5 years of your salary on most players like X and use a poll 2 years later to see if you are right. Because that's it. If you're a full-time indie developer, that's literally what you're doing. You're betting like a ton of your future salary and all of your income and all of your life, your ability to pay your rent and eat on the fact that your game is definitely going to sell. That's really hard to make up. If you can make that work, that's great. But it's really hard. So I don't do that. I rely on my video work, my Patreon supporters, and the other part-time work to support what I do, which is all that stuff you saw beforehand. And as a result, I can fail and have that be okay. I'm in a place where I can fail. I've got savings, I've got my YouTube, I've got everything else that I do. So if my next game flops, it's okay. I don't starve. And it's important, I think, to have something like that. Because this is what it comes down to for me. And I think it's the same is true for a lot of people. A lot of people trick themselves into thinking that their dream is to make a living from their creative thing. And that's not it at all. That's just a means to what your dream really is. The dream is to make a creative thing without it having to make a living. Without you having to earn money from the thing you do. Because if you had infinite money, you're still into games. You would probably still make games, right? Because you love doing it. So the dream is not like, oh, I'm going to make games and have those power me through life and those are going to pay for me to exist. The dream is just to make games. And the only reason we think that the goal is for it to make a living is because we need to make a living. And we think, well, I want to spend all of my time making the games, so if I did that, that would work. But there are other ways to go about it, and there are other safety nets you can use to build a space for your dream. So the idea is not that you're... The problem is that most people think that if they don't do this, they are compromising their dream. They think they're not really living their dream to the fullest if they are not earning a living from their creative thing. And the truth is exactly the opposite. If you are building a safety net, you are building a space for you to live your dream and making that space as big as you possibly can. And that's really what you should be doing, in my opinion. So some would argue that you do actually do your best work under that kind of real pressure, with huge real risks and mental and emotional strain of like, if this game doesn't sell, then I'm doomed. I think that's absolutely nonsense, and I think the sheer risk just simply isn't worth it. All the things I talked about, like, I don't think it's worth staking your entire life on the idea that by staking your entire life on something that's going to motivate you to work harder. You don't need that. You don't need to cut your safety net to climb a mountain. You just need the discipline to actually climb it without that pressure. Speaking of discipline, that's what I'm going on to do now. This is my second thing I want to Motivation is a drive to do something, having a reason to do something. It's fleeting, it's mood, and it's body dependent. We all know the feeling of feeling like we're really motivated to work on our games. Like, that's why we did it in the first place, because it was fun and it was interesting and important to us. The power of motivation is making things that are hard work not hard work. It makes them fun. Everything I've done in my career, it's literally powered everything. Everything I've ever done, everything I've done it because it was fun, it was interesting. I made videos because I thought it would be a cool thing to do. I made games because I love games and I just wanted to make that stuff. And my motivation was there to power me through that, and I've had so much of it. And that's been a problem for me. Because this is the cause of something that's held me back from making pretty much all my work the best it could have been. And it has been the cause of every problem I've ever had as a developer. Because I didn't have any discipline. All I had was motivation, and it's all I'd ever known. And it carried me so far. I was able to do so much on the basis that every piece of work I do is fun. Everything I do, I loved doing so much. That I believed I needed to do that in order to do the work. So whenever I came up against anything that was actually hard, anytime I came up against something that was not fun, anytime I come up against something that maybe I think, oh, maybe I'll do that later, I didn't do it. I stopped, and I abandoned so many projects. I dropped on so much. It's amazing I finished Under the Perspective, and probably the reason I did is because it's quite a short game. So I was able to finish it before my motivation for it ran out, because I had no discipline at all. And the only reason I learned about this is when I started running. I did Couch to 5K recently. I'm like one of the most unhealthy people on the planet. But I did this thing where you learn to eventually run 5K. And in the midst of like week 4 of that, I felt my body say to me like, wouldn't it be easy to just stop now? You know? I was running and saying, well, you could just stop. Your body, I want to stop doing this now. Right now, I'm not interested in running anymore, and I told my body no, because I was interested in a goal. And that's what the power of discipline is. being able to do something because of a future outcome that you want and not what you want right now. There's no trick, there's no guide to this. It's completely down to making yourself do something that you didn't want to do. And this is not an argument at all, and I don't want anyone to come away with this from this thinking that, oh, actually, I'm not working hard enough because I don't feel stressed and I don't feel pained about this and I don't feel like this is difficult, like I'm not working myself hard enough. That's absolutely not true. If you're motivated, that's great. If you think that everything you do is fun and it's easy to do because it's fun, then do it. I'm not making the argument that you want to overwork or crunch yourself. I'm making the argument that you need to be honest with yourself and not needing to love work in order to actually finish it. Because we'll reach that point in any project where you don't love the work anymore, but you still want the outcome. It still matters to you. It's still important to you. So you need to be able to do it. And that's just hard work. There's no way to trick yourself. There's no motivational tip that'll help you. It's just discipline. It's just doing it. It's literally all there is to it. There's no guide, there's no help. It's literally, this thing is hard. You've got to do it anyway. So this is my last thing. So I've done a lot of things that I should be really proud of, and I am most of the time. But now and again, I am absolutely crushed, and I think it comes across somewhat in the language of this talk and how I've been talking about how really lucky I am all of the time. I feel crushed under the weight of feeling like I've looked into literally everything. Like, think of the odds of me just having that game ready for that competition and everything that I just stumble into. And this makes me terrified that I don't deserve any of what I have. I don't deserve any of the success that I felt. I haven't earned any of it. Other people are working way harder than me and they have way less to show for it than what I have. And how is that fair? And I feel criticism, and I know this affects everyone, but I feel criticism so much more than I feel praise. Like, Steam reviews for me are hell. Every time I see a review of another perspective that says, oh, this is just a braid clone, or anything else, it goes right into my gut, and I think, they found it. They found me. They've worked me out. They've worked out that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about this. And I feel I feel like I've been caught, like I was an imposter. And now this feeling is something that's been talked about a lot in this industry. If you've been watching talks from this industry a lot, people talk about imposter syndrome all the time, and it's never solved my problem. And likely this talk won't solve yours because I know everyone suffers from this to some degree. But maybe it'll kind of help, I don't really know. The reason this doesn't help for me is the absolute darkest place I've ever been with imposter syndrome is seeing the statement, I have imposter syndrome, as just another part of my disguise. I see, I just have imposter syndrome. You know, I'm actually great at everything that I do. You know, I deserve all this. I deserve it. I just have a bit of imposter syndrome. And that to me, it just seems like I'm lying. It just seems like I'm trying to convince you that actually, no, I am good at this stuff. I really am. Like, I just have a bit of imposter syndrome. Please don't catch me. And you can't prove this feeling away. This is the worst part. You can't scan someone's brain. You can't have a doctor look at you and go, oh, actually, you just have imposter syndrome. So your brain can't fix it. Your brain can't fix a problem with itself. And everyone I know feels this way to some degree, but knowing that doesn't help. When someone else says, oh, I suffer from imposter syndrome, and they talk about the things that you feel, you just think, well, there's got to be a fraud out there somewhere, right? Someone's got to be pretending. Like, not everyone can necessarily be the best. Like, someone out there has probably got more praise than they deserve. Why not me? Why couldn't that person be me? And so it never comes back to you. You can never apply it to yourself, and you can never think that, oh, actually, you know, I have imposter syndrome and I'm fine. It never helps. But, and this is the one thing I'll say, and it's the only thing I can say, and it's the only thing I think that might help you, is it's not real. This is a cool quote. It's from an 80s anime about boxing. Not everyone who worked hard is rewarded. However, all those who succeed have worked hard, and it's true. I deserve everything that I've done. Like, I worked really hard on those videos. I worked really hard on the game I made. Sure, I was motivated to do it, and it felt like fun for me, but so what? It was work. It was work, and it was meaningful, and I'm the only one who can decide that. All these ideas of whether something was easy or lucky or hard or whether you deserve it is meaningless. Those ideas are all just made-up words that humans came up with. They don't mean anything. The only person who can decide whether something was easy or hard or meaningful or important is you. You're literally the person who decides those feelings and whether or not your work it matters. And why would you decide that it doesn't? It's entirely up to you. So wherever you are, however people rate your skills, however privileged you are, however lucky you are, none of it matters. None of it is a cause for guilt, and none of it should be a reason that you ever feel upset about the work you do. The only thing that matters is what you do from there. The places you find while climbing whatever mountain you climb, they don't mean anything at all, they're not real. Only the climb itself matters, and only the climb itself is real. So to summarize, building a safety net is not compromising your dream, it's exactly the opposite. It's building a space for you to do your work, and the more you do that, it's building a space for your dream and it allows your dream to exist. Sometimes we're carried a long way by our love for the work and the things we find are fun and easy, but you can't expect that to work for every goal. You've got to learn to be able to do actual hard work and things that are not fun. And when you're successful, you'll question whether or not you deserve it, or if you've really succeeded. And the question itself means absolutely nothing, and you will be fine. Thanks, I hope that helped. That's me.
Thank you very much, Shaun Spalding, the enlightening talk.